Okay, I'm sorry. That was really dumb. I was trying to do several things at the same time yesterday and finishing stuff, and did the wrong settings. Remember, it happened before, so it's not that unusual. I am so sorry. So, getting back to where I was going to start. First of all, if you remember in the whatchamacallit, in the sponsors area, and let me get to it. There is in the tier 2, there should be something about the agate deformers. Give me just a minute to get in there. I'm trying to do so many things at the same time. See, on the on the tier 2 tutorials, on the second page, there is something that says deformers. For the newer sponsors, this is something that I did a while ago when I was doing when I did various agate tutorials, and it shows you how to make special deformers for making agates, and not only, but this is how you get to it, and it's in the tier 2. Okay, let me grab my deformers here and then get back on it. Okay, so, oh no, I got the wrong thing here. I'm sorry, I'm so messed up. So let's get back here. Morning. I'm sorry. Okay, so these are deformers that at the time, and as I said, you can find on the second page on tier 2, you can find the video on how to make them. Remember that you can expand any of the videos on the website. I'm sorry. I'm kind of tired. I've been waking up. I said on Facebook, I posted on Facebook, I've been waking up anywhere between 1:30 and 2:30 because my shoulder still hurts and I still keep turning on it. And sometimes I manage to take a pill and fall back asleep, and then I would wake up at like 4:30, but sometimes I don't. And depends on how bad my shoulder hurts. And last night was one of those. I woke up at 2:45 and wasn't able to fall asleep. So I've been already awake for like 7 hours. So, that's why. Sorry, that's why I'm yawning. Anyway, so in order to make agates, to make it pretty much most of your agates, and let me say hi real quick. Hi Elaine, hi Jennifer, hi Fran, and Laura Lynn. This would be, and I will show you why. This would be pretty much, these round ones would be pretty much the best way to create those deformations. And let's go back to the display so I can show you what I'm talking about. Because if you look at agates, regular agates, I'm not talking about fire agates. See how pretty much in the middle of them you'll have a type of deformation See, like in this corner here or here, and depending on what agate it is. But on most of the agates, you will have this type of deformation, that these deformers will help you a lot in obtaining. See, look right here. And except for a couple of them, you can make most agates using mokumegane. Well, I'm talking about a couple of them. And those are mostly the ones that represent part of a geode. Let me see if I can enhance this photo. See, it's the ones, because this would be a slice, a geode slice, and it's the area that is here that it would be very hard to develop when doing a mokumegane. In that case, you will need a stack. Remember, we talked about stacks last time. This would be the same thing. It would be kind of hard to obtain these crystalline formations. And I'll talk about geode, how to make 4 geodes here in a minute. But it would be hard because you have all these little crystals. But especially when you're talking about stuff like this, except for the crystalline part, you shouldn't have any problems obtaining these patterns using simply mokumegane and using these deformers. Now, getting back to that. Hi, Chris. Getting back to that, you can easily see what happens, but there's a specific thing that you need to do. And I'm going to use, let me get a piece of this scrap clay to show you how you're supposed to use it. Okay, let me just grab this scrap. Okay, it's 2 different sizes, but that's fine. It's gonna still help us understand what's going on here. So I'm going to kind of make a mokumegane here. And that's the thing whenever you do, and I'll talk about the sheets of the mokumegane here in a minute, but one thing that you need to keep in mind, you don't always have to have a perfectly covered mokumegane. That is, not all your pieces have to be covering the whole area. Okay, let's flatten this up a bit to make the lines more thinner and more defined, like for an agate. And then I'm going to remember that I'm showing you about how you're supposed to do something like this. So I have these here, you'll have a whole bunch of colors and lines, and different, that's very important, have different thicknesses of the lines. The only one, and I'm going to put it up soon, the only one that has this kind of complete lots of lines that are pretty much equal is the Botswana agate. So the way that you do it, let me actually get this in 2 to show you with 2 different ones. Let's flatten it some more, because this is very important how you do it. You can either do this with the same colors, or you can have two different mokumegane with two different layered, maybe even different colors. So the way you do it, you place your deformer like this. Of course, put a little bit of repellent. As usual, I'm using the Armor All. And then press the mokumegane on the deformer. Right? And then without moving it, you remove the deformer. Kind of make it stand still here. And then shave off this and then place it back in. And you can repeat the same thing on the corners. So let's say I'm gonna get this other deformer here, and I'm going to press in some, remove the deformer. I forgot to put on repellent. Then again, shave the extra, and then place it here. Then let's do a couple more, and you can use the different deformers here. Again, press. You don't have to press all the way through. And then flatten the area around the deformed part, and then shave off the extra and put it back in. When you are at this point, now imagine that all this is different colors, right? But it will still look like some kind of agate. When you're at, hold on, I got wet stuff here, and it slides. So when you get at this point, you want to kind of bring it back in a little bit, reconsolidate, as I always say. I forgot to wipe the area, but I'll show you with the other one. So kind of get it back in. And you can use this not just for agates. There are other, you can use it for malachite. Only that you'll need a little bit rounder deformers than this. And I'll show you with these ones too. These ones would be more for malachite. Because you have to remember, malachite, you might see the big picture, but those little bubbles, they are actually very small on the stone itself. Okay, and once you have done your little stack, you kind of not forget to wipe off the release agent. Once you're done with this, then all you need to do is to kind of slice it up. And then use it as a veneer. I'm sorry, I'm not going to forget on the other one to remove the release agent. And see, because now that you have this, you can flatten it out a little. It just comes off because I forgot to wipe the thing. And then you make, when you make a bead or a cabochon or something, I'm not gonna get up and get another bead right now, but I'll show you how to do that with molds as well. You simply cover your cabochon sorry. And you will have pretty much a faux agate. I know it should be more colorful and more translucent, but this is pretty much, that's why I wanted to show you with this, because this is pretty much how you will do it. Now remember that you need to get the lines of different thicknesses. It's very important. Now let's see how goes something like this, because again this one is important. Let me flatten it again. Only that this one will have several points of penetration. And again, flatten the area around it. Shave off. And place under. See, I had a tiny spot here that I didn't shave off properly. And now we can start consolidating it. And I have a hearts thing here, but that's going to be just fine to show you how to create a... Okay, let's shave a slice. Excuse me. And then grab this to form a cabochon. And what you must do is first place the base, what's going to be the inside filling of your cabochon. Just form the cabochon first with the filling. Yeah, this is a best flexible, thank you, molds from PolyClay. And then remember, I always use the pivoting blade thing. And then gently pull in from the edges to make it come off easier. And now I'm going to prepare, even if this one by itself, if it would be the proper colors, would look like an agate. So I'm going to flatten this. Oops, I messed up. That's fine. cover your base. Make sure you don't trap air. Shave off as much as you can from the extra without messing up the cabochon. And then simply place the cabochon back in the mold. If you ever wanted... No, it didn't, Tanya. When I got that one, I messed up and I set it as public. I had to redo it. So if you were wondering why using cosmetic sponges, because even with the wax paper, the clay mats might still lift, but with the cosmetic sponge, it doesn't. Sorry. Yeah, and the last 3 days weren't that happy for me because it's been raining. And that always messes me up. And that's when my scars too start hurting. And there we go. We have a beautiful agate pattern on a cabochon. And I think I have one here. Yeah. And there you go. Only that this one is a full slice. I mean, you can make these much taller. I mean, much bigger. And then when you start consolidating them, they will get much taller, and then you can cut thicker slices from them. But yeah, this is one because I wanted to make it so it can be just with the pinch bail here, and as you can see, it's transparent. So this is how it looks when you do, even when you do a, but the thing is that for agates, always do the backing with translucent, never use regular scrap clay, because if you, with agates, you always have to think that you'll have the back showing. It's the best thing to do just open settings on them or wire wrapping. And if you use just the veneer, once you're done with the front, then you'll have to put another veneer on the back. It's much easier to use simply slices. I mean, make a bigger moku megane and then simply use slices, pieces out of it, because that way it will look even more natural. Let's see if I got this. This was a little bit too thin, but you can always cover up with just a little piece here, enough to make it thick enough. Oops, sorry. And there we go, we have one that's both front and back. But as I said, your best bet is to do slices, and if you want to do veneers, always put the base translucent. Don't make it with an opaque. Now let's discuss a little bit about colors used. Number one, as much as you see on various photos of agates, or if you have real agates around the house, and as much as you might see, so see, this is a crazy lace. In some occasions you see what looks like a flat color, an opaque color. It's never an opaque color. All the colors in an agate, you have to mix them with, see, this one you can obtain by using those deformers more and more. But for each color in an agate, you have to mix it with translucent. Never have, let me see if I can get a better look at this. Never put there a simple, see, none of these colors is an opaque color. They are all transparent. They are all translucent. You can even get an agate using just translucent and one color. One thing that is for sure, and I have to warn you about it, is that you will have to do some testing before doing them all to start with, because a lot of the clays, when they are baked, they look way darker. See, but you can obtain this the way that I would advise you to work with it. Let's see if we can find a better photo. I don't want to begin my crystal journey. Okay. It wouldn't let me. Got a freaking sticky top. Oh, just a second. Okay, done. I lost it. Hi, Patty. Okay, so going back to the agates, even when you have, like in these cases, it looks black, but when you look at it, it's not black. It is a translucent. It's not an opaque black. It's a translucent black, because when you take it out, you're going to be able to see light shining through it. Maybe not full light, but it will be translucent. So you can see here very easily how even the darker colors on the agate, they are still translucent. The easiest way, I do not advise you to start directly with Cernit or Pardo. I would advise you to first start with Premo. It's much easier to see what are your more translucent and your less translucent areas. While when you're working with Cernit and Pardo, as you know, those clays, the translucent is white, looks opaque white. Let's go for this one and see a little bit, because here I can show you better. See how you have different, this is simply translucent to translucent white. You have just simply, what did you do? You have simply different degrees of translucency, and that is enough to create the agate specific lines. This is another area, and you can see they're simply different degrees of translucency. Now you're going to ask me, okay, but what would be the best to use to color the translucent? Your best bet, honestly, are alcohol inks, because pretty much all alcohol inks have a transparent pigment. A lot of other things, they have an opaque pigment. If you do not have alcohol inks, one thing that you can do very honestly, you can simply get a marker, a permanent marker, and just do a few lines with it. A brown or a red, or a brown line and a red line. The thing is that if you work with other colored, just a regular colored, just put a grain there. Again, there are colors that are more transparent and colors that are more opaque. Out of all the colors of polymer clay, the most opaque is the white one. So whenever you're trying to tint the translucent clay with white, make sure that you put just a little bit. I do advise that if you want to make a white line, and if you want to make several different transparencies of white lines, what I would advise you to do is get like one square, remember, using this. Go to bed. Go. So if we have one transparent, okay, and we get and you have the white, okay, this would be for 1:1, how you measure the high, did I say high patty? I did. If you measure the proportions, so this would be 1 translucent, and then if you cut 1 white and then start cutting it, first of all cut it in 4. You don't really want much more than 1/4 of white per 1 part of translucent, but just to create different translucencies in the white, you do 1 translucent with 1/4, then 1 translucent with 1/8, then 1 translucent with 32 part, and so on. Oops. And so on. You just keep, no, it would be 1/8, 1/16, and then 1/32. You just cut in half, and you can make yourself like 4 or 5 or 6 different whites. What I can tell you that it looks the most realistic is when you have one of the less translucent whites flanked by one more translucent white on one side and one even more translucent or pure translucent white on the other side. Again, don't forget to do the lines of different thicknesses. If it is hard for you to figure out how to do that, it's the simplest way that you can do, and you can use one of the smaller quarters. Put one color by simply stacking 2 on the thickest setting, then you would have 1 on a thickest setting, and then you keep going, you know, like half, like a 3, then like a 5, then like a 7, and that way you'll have different thicknesses, and then you can start thinning it out for the mokumegane. Now the question is, how do we do the geodes? number one, you need cornstarch, and you will have to cook your cornstarch in a fairly thick, a little bit thicker than custard consistency. Then, oops, sorry, I leaned on my shoulder, on the hand with the bad shoulder. Just a minute, I forgot to take these out. If I didn't give them away, because I might have. I think I did. Well, I did. I'm sorry. I forgot. I have some local people who come from time to time, and sometimes I just give away things. So what you want to do is first get some translucent, pure translucent. You don't need anything else. And what you do, let me actually get some translucent, because I know I had a piece here. And there we go. So you get some translucent, and you don't really want to condition it much. And then you start chopping it. If it is too well conditioned, it's gonna be too soft and it's going to stick to the blade. And then once you are fairly small with your crumbles, what you want to do is to get some mica powder. And depending on what you're going to cover it up with, because if you're going to make an amethyst geode, obviously you want a little bit of lilac maybe, or interference violet. And just get some of the mica powder in here. Toss a little bit, and then keep crumbling in such a way that by the time you're done, each of these crumbles will be covered with mica powder. And I will show you here in a minute how it looks like. So that when you bake them, they are going to look like crystals. They will even have faceted, and this is actually, I can show you, if you remember when I did the Spirit of Winter necklace, because here in the Spirit of Winter I used this specific technique. And yes, let me refocus. And yes, even if there are some rhinestones in there, nevertheless, you can see the crystals underneath, only that I covered them so they would look like melting ice. See, like for example here, there is no rhinestone. It's just the crystals, and here too, the crystals that are covered with interference blue. Let me actually go even closer so you can see better. See how the crumbles of translucent clay underneath This is exactly what I'm doing now. This is exactly how it looks like. Let me get even more close up. See, when you look at them, changing the angle, the stuff that's inside shines blue exactly like a crystal. Okay, let's get back on here. Okay, so just don't add too much dust, because otherwise you'll have, I mean, it's useless to add too much dust because it's going to just start falling off the areas that it cannot stick with, not with. So just make some crystals. Simply make crystals and then bake them. You have to have them already baked when creating a geode. I will do at a later time a tutorial because I have it on plan. But this is to teach you how to make any geodes. And let me get it back in a close-up. Because the moment you bake, and that's going to be even better if you use Cernit translucent or Pardo translucent, but you can see how you already you can obtain the, see, look here. Then once these are baked and they are cooled off, you can keep them, I normally keep them in little Ziploc bags, you know, like this. And then whenever whenever I need them, I use them. Then how do you do with the cornstarch? You get like a little glob, maybe with like half a teaspoon, depending on how big you want to make your geode slice. And then you place it, I prefer to work those on tiles here, either on the back of the mirror or on the top of a mirror, because it's easier to see exactly how it looks like. So you place a blob of cornstarch like this. It's going to be much softer than this, obviously. And then you grab all your baked, and again they have to be baked, otherwise they will not be firm enough to do the next step that you need to do. You pretty much pour them on top here, and then you start pressing them in, and as some of them will fall off, just keep adding. You won't be able to add everything that you have, but you'll make a layer. Okay, then simply get some liquid clay, transparent liquid clay. The best would be PolyClay. Of course, you can use the new Scalpy translucent, and just kind of brush all over these baked areas. Then let it sit for at least 15 minutes. I usually let them sit for half an hour. After which you can start putting up layers of tinted translucent. And as I said, depending on what if you want to make an amethyst, a just quartz, or a smoky quartz, or whatever, it will depend what color of these crystals you put in. You have to remember that you can have a geode with amethyst inside, but the sides would be simply quartz and it will be agatized. So, and pretty much once you're done, and you'll have kind of like a half a sphere, and all you have to do is again let it sit for a little bit. You can even deform it. You can place, once you have placed your first couple of layers, you can start placing these kind of layers that you have deformed already. And then all you have to do is simply to start slicing. And of course you'll start from the top like this, because that's why I said you need to let it sit for a while, so everything will get kind of hardened up and it will be easy to slice. And then when you slice, you'll have the cornstarch in the middle. Simply bake your slices, and once you are baked, you can put them in water and the cornstarch will dissolve. I heard people recommended that you put them in water before, but I wouldn't do that because everything might fall apart. But anyway, this is the essence, and I'm sorry I was aiming for being up for longer, but I'm afraid I'm not. I don't know why, but I just I mean I know why, because I woke up before 2 o'clock last night, but I am starting to be in pain. At least I hope that for like less than an hour I was able to give you a lot of important information. And remember, the deformers are on the website in the tier 2. That's where you find them. And of course, as you can see, I'm only using the scrap clay. Cannot even talk anymore. I need to go to sleep. I'm sorry, it's weird. It's 10:30 and I need to go to sleep, but I need to. If I'll feel better later, I might jump online, probably on Facebook, I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, this is essentially the basics of creating agates and geode. If I am able to, I will try to bake some cornstarch, but if not, I might just take a nap and then get back on making the sponsor tutorials. And remember, the next week's live will be a separate subject because it's the last Friday of the month and it's going to be for the tier 0. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to go lay down. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all tomorrow when there's the noon clay with me.